A long time ago, there was a poor woodcutter who bought a lame donkey, and Allah blessed him with a treasure that no human had ever seen. Uncle Zoran was an extremely old man. Age had consumed his health, and time had carved deep wrinkles on his face, each line telling a story of patience and hardship. He lived alone in a dilapidated hut on the edge of a small village. When his life partner passed away, he was left to face the harshness of solitude. In the world, he only had a rope, a frail body, and a lame donkey, which was no longer strong enough to carry heavy wood. Days passed, and the cold of winter weakened his bones even further. At the first light of dawn, he would leave home, dragging his feet, going to the nearby forest, gathering dry twigs, carrying them on his hunched back to the market, where he sold them for a few coins, barely enough to buy a dry piece of bread. One night, the pain in his back became so severe that he could not even stand. He sat in the darkness of his hut, looking at the broken roof, thinking silently that he could no longer continue working this way. He realized he desperately needed an animal, one that could carry his burden and support him through the hardships of life. Uncle Zoran opened an old bundle he had hidden under a stone on the hut's floor. It contained all the savings he had collected over his life, but there were only a few copper coins and some silver dirhams, corroded by time. He looked at them with longing, yet he decided to go to the city market to buy an animal. By noon, he reached the market. There was noise everywhere, dust, traders shouting, the braying of donkeys and neighing of horses, and the stench of dung filling the air. He walked among the merchants in his tattered clothes and pale face. Whenever he approached an animal to ask its price, the merchants would scorn him, knowing he could not even pay for the
Uncle
rope,
Zoran's
let
heart
alone
sank,
buy an animal,
and
tears filled his eyes. Just as he was about to leave the market in despair, his eyes fell on a corner where an extremely weak donkey stood. Its ribs were visible, its body covered with sores, standing on only 3 legs, the fourth raised above the ground. It was a lame donkey, seemingly taking its last breaths. Zoran approached with sympathy. The donkey looked at him with eyes full of extinguished sorrow. Zoran asked the owner for the price in a trembling voice. The man laughed sarcastically, saying he would sell it for a handful of coins to cover its food, otherwise he would have had it killed to feed the dogs. Zoran gave all the money in his pocket and took the rope of the lame donkey. Seeing this, the wealthy traders in the market were stunned. They laughed, mocking him, thinking such a weak and lame donkey was useless. Little did they know, behind that weakness lay a secret that would forever change the history of the village. During the return journey, a strange turn occurred. Whenever Zoran tried to steer the donkey toward a safe path, it would plant its feet firmly and move toward another dangerous and desolate route. Zoran hit it, scolded it, but in the donkey's eyes was a strange glow, as if some hidden power was pulling it toward that path. Despite being old and weak, the donkey led him through a rocky and perilous route. Every step demanded double strength. Zoran stumbled repeatedly, his worn shoes tore further, his feet were scraped and bleeding, yet the donkey continued steadily. It was as if the path itself responded to the treasure hidden in the land, or as if the donkey knew something only it could sense. Zoran struggled to follow, fear and exhaustion weighing him down. Night fell, and the valley grew dark and silent. The ground was uneven, thorny bushes were everywhere, hiding pits and obstacles. No ordinary human could have walked this path safely. Suddenly, the donkey stopped in front of a huge rock. Zoran thought the path had ended and that they might die trapped here. He pulled on the rope, trying to move the donkey back. But it planted its hooves into the earth, lifted its head high, and brayed a long, resonant call that echoed off the mountains. Was it a cry for help, or a declaration of victory? No one could tell. The donkey then moved toward a narrow and rocky passage, thick with sharp thorn bushes, where barely a crawling human could pass. It nudged Zoran forward. Zoran, groaning in pain, crawled slowly into the passage, leaving the donkey waiting outside. Inside, the darkness was deep, but after a few steps, a faint light appeared, filtering through cracks in the massive cave ceiling. Zoran crawled carefully along the rocky edge. When he raised his head, he saw a scene that took his breath away and would change his destiny forever. The hidden valley lay before him, enclosed by tall, towering mountains. In the middle of the valley was a fortress-like structure no human had ever seen. But the most astonishing thing was not the valley itself, but what lay scattered across its floor: piles of gold of various sizes, glinting in the sun, streaks of gold cutting through the stone walls like rivers of light. The donkey had led him to a place where if the kings of the world had known, they would have waged wars to possess it. Zoran's hands trembled as he collected the gold pieces, filling the old bags he used to carry wood on the donkey's back. He took smaller and medium-sized pieces and left the larger chunks embedded in the rocks. He trusted that Allah's provision, once decreed, would remain safe. Zoran, carrying the treasure-filled bags on the donkey's back, began the journey back to the village. The donkey stood firm and steady, as if the gold had granted it some hidden strength or as if it understood the importance of the burden it carried. Every thorn, rock, and uneven patch that had previously caused Zoran pain now felt easier. His legs no longer ached, and the biting cold of the night seemed to vanish. Faith and certainty filled his heart. By dawn, Zoran reached the edge of the village. The market was awakening again, with merchants opening their shops and recounting the events of yesterday's trade. He entered the village with his faithful donkey, wearing the same tattered clothes and showing the same tired face. At first, no one paid attention to him. But when he reached the main market, where the same merchants had mocked him the day before, the murmurs began. "Look, the old man who came to buy a donkey is back. What does he have in those bags?" they whispered, astonished. Zoran did not respond to their mockery. With dignity and calm, he placed the gold in front of them and announced that he was buying not only their shops but also their respect, something they only offered for money. That moment was more than a poor man's victory over the rich, it was a lesson in destiny, patience, and faith written into the harsh world of the market. In one moment, Uncle Zoran went from a mocked and pitted man to the wealthiest person among the merchants. Yet, having endured a lifetime of deprivation and hardship, pride did not enter his heart. He did not hoard the treasure for himself. Instead, he commanded that the wealth be distributed among the poor, widows, and needy villagers. He built shelters for travelers and the destitute, turning his old hut into a memory of humility and service. As for the lame donkey, Zoran arranged the best stable, provided nutritious food, and honored it for its service, the very vehicle through which Allah had brought salvation into his life. The merchants who had ridiculed him could not follow the treacherous path. Their greed and envy led them to fail. Horses and mules stumbled on the rocks, and some were injured. Days later, they returned to the village broken, tattered, and exhausted, realizing that their fortune was not meant for them. Allah had first taken away their insight, then their wealth. Zoran's life became a lesson that Allah sometimes hides His provision in the weakest hands, and the keys to salvation are granted to those who are sincere and virtuous. The villagers always remembered Zoran and his donkey, speaking of their deeds with reverence. People learned that true power is not in wealth or physical strength, but in patience, faith, and good deeds. Zoran spent the rest of his life in happiness and contentment, a living example that Allah never lets the labor and goodness of a righteous person go unrewarded. The lame donkey, once mocked and overlooked, became a symbol of divine wisdom and guidance, forever honored in the hearts of the villagers. This story is completely fictional and has no connection to any real person or event. Its purpose is solely to convey a moral lesson.